Well, the Twins did their job. They went into Houston. They're coming home. They're split the games in Houston 1-1. But man, did it not feel like we split games. It felt like we're coming home with an advantage right now. We've got this crowd. Target Field is going to absolutely melt down tonight. I'm excited. I know you're excited. We're going to get into all of it. Let's go.
Let's go. Twins steal one in Houston. Now we're coming back to Minneapolis. Got 2 more to go. Cole, how are you feeling right now?
Dude, first of all, stealing one in Houston, I think they earned that one in Houston. That was amazing. They did everything from Rocco to Pablo to Carlos. They did it. They secured that win. They earned that win. That was incredible. Even game 1, they put up a fight, but there has not been a better time to be a Twins fan, man. I don't think ever. I mean, even 2004, you go into the ALCS, you're about to face the Angels. This team is better than that team in 2004. Matching up wise too with Houston, we match up better than we match up with the Angels back then. I think everything right now is in the favor of the Twins. And that also, as a Twins fan, scares the living bleep out of me because we've been here before. We felt like in 2019, we're like, this Bomba squad, man. Sure, we don't have the pitching, but this is the team. They can put up, we don't need pitching if we can score 15 runs, but we learned we did. Falvey learned we did. Rocco learned we did. And hey, now we got the pitching. We have the offense. The offense is finally clicking on all cylinders together. It feels like we haven't had a team that has been a team as much as this one since. Wouldn't you agree? Just all around.
Absolutely. Everyone's chipping in. No one's really, like going above and beyond, like way ahead of everyone else. It's a true team effort. Everyone's, buying into the cause. We're getting great innings from all of our pitchers. Our hitters are doing the job at the plate. So, yeah, I think you said it perfectly. It's a super fun time to be a Twins fan.
Yeah. And one of my favorite things that I've watched these Twins all year. I know what Rocco's going to do. And that Houston knows what Rocco's going to do, what moves he's going to make, when he's going to bring Killaroff in, when he's going to bring in Stevenson, when Julian's going to pinch hit. Like they know, and that's the thing is it doesn't matter. You can know that Killaroff's coming in. You can know that this is happening and you're still scared as an Astros fan because they're just so good. And he's putting them in the perfect situations. And you know what I'm most excited for today's game? Tuesday, game 3 at home, Twins, not only for the fans, but if you take a look at the numbers, Sonny Gray at home during the day, first of all, even just during the day, I believe his ERA is barely over 1. I'd have to look up exactly. Don't quote me on the number, but he is the best Sonny Gray version of Sonny Gray at home during the day, especially during the day, even on the road. Sonny Gray's the man. So we're sitting here complaining about all these day games we're getting. I don't think the Twins are. I think they are pumped that they're getting a day game because on the flip side, Christian Javier on the road has like a 5.6, 5.8 ERA against Sonny Gray with like a 1.2 during the day. Give me Sonny Gray. It is. You want me to be cliche and say it's sunny outside today, or should it be gray outside today? I don't know. I feel like you go either direction.
For the first time in what feels like weeks, it's finally sunny out today. So I think we're rocking with sunny. And like you said about the home and away splits, I think that's only amplified in the playoffs when you have crowds that are just fully bought into the game, bought into every single pitch. And I mean, a guy that has that good of a home split obviously feeds off that energy. And that extra energy from the crowd today being a playoff game, I think that's going to be a huge bump to Sonny, and I think he shoves today.
I agree. He's going to absolutely shove today. He's amazing, Sonny Gray, but we got to step back. We got to talk about the guy that Fox is absolutely in love with. I think that Jeter would take home to his kids, Pablo Lopez. Wow. You've heard it already. He put on a clinic, man. I'm speechless. Pablo Lopez is the guy we've waited for in Minnesota for a very long time. Since I don't remember being this excited about a starting pitcher in Minnesota since Francisco Liriano. Even Yohan Santana, yes, he was amazing. But I don't know. This is crazy. To be your first year with the Twins and be this valuable to this team, it's pretty awesome.
Well, and it's something that Twins fans have been asking for years and years on end. We've always been looking for that just lock down, that ace pitcher. You can toss him the ball and you know your team is going to be put in a chance to win the game. And that's what Pablo Lopez offers us. And it's funny looking back at go back to the springtime of this season. There's a lot of people upset that we shipped off Arias for him. A lot of Twins fans were very unhappy. And I can see why. Arias was a fan favorite, a great hitter, but come October, I would so much rather have Pablo Lopez on this team than Luis Arias, and I don't think it's very close.
No, it's not close. And I mean, like you said, Luis Arias was a fan favorite. Everyone loved him. I still love him right now. I hope he wins a batting title every year for the rest of his career. I hope the Marlins go on and get to a World Series one day and the Twins beat them with Pablo Lopez on the mound. That's how much that's about my extent of love for Luis Arias right now. You got to love the guy. But you know what? There were a lot of Pablo Lopez haters because of how much they were fans of Luis Arias. I never was one of those. I was like, hey, trust me, I like this trade. I'm a big Luis Arias guy. So I'm super pumped watching Pablo go out there and now is 2-0 with a 0.71 ERA in the playoffs for the Twins. I could not be happier. I have text messages. I was going through some friends' old text messages because especially one of my friends, he texted me and said, the Luis Arias trade was amazing. Carlos Correa is worth every penny. Sent me that period after the game. And he is the one that I scrolled back and I was like, look at all this hate that all this shade that he threw to Carlos Correa's way when we signed him. All the stuff he was dumping on Pablo. He said, he had a 5 point whatever ERA last year or the year before. He's no good. He's a 500 pitcher last year. And I was like, told you, here he is. Twins are here, man. You listen to some Hot Dish Sports. We know what we got. I'm so excited about Pablo Lopez. I cannot even explain. And I'm excited about how we got to talk about how Rocco is playing these games, how he's setting these lineups, how he's setting it up against Framber Valdez. He's taken the guys out of the lineup who may be seen as some of your best players, like Killeroff, like Julian. Who else did he take out of the lineup after that? I'm trying to think. There's one more guy. Wallner, right? You're taking Wallner out of your lineup, and you're casual Twins fans going, "What are you doing? You've won 2 of the last 3 games. You lose 1 game, and you go, I'm going to pull Killeroff, Wallner, and Julian. That makes no sense." But your fan who's been watching this game all year and following this podcast, they knew before that lineup even came out that at least 2 of those 3 guys was going to be out of this lineup because we had Framber Valdez on the mound, and the matchup just didn't make sense, lefty on lefty. So I can't say enough good things right now about Rocco, even after we probably threw a little shade Rocco's way at some points this year. We got to pull that back in right now and hope that everything continues on the path that it is right now. I'm still afraid of when he's going to pull Emilio Pagan out in a 1-run game, and still worries me. I know Pagan, I've thrown a lot of shade his way, but he's due. He has he pitched yet in the playoffs? I think he threw 1 inning in that loss. I think he threw the last inning, but gosh, Carlos Correa. Yeah. Is there anything you want to talk about this lineup before we're going to dive deep into Correa for a minute, but anything else on this lineup you want to talk about from this game before that?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to touch on, you were talking about fans being upset with some of the lineup changes. And I think it comes down to the type of coach that Rocco is. He is a new school baseball coach. He's analytical. He's going to use the numbers and trust the numbers. And I mean, obviously at this point, it's got us this far. And I feel like as a fan, you just kind of got to buy in. But yeah, like you were saying, if you weren't watching the whole season and seeing how he runs this team and just tuning in for the playoffs, I'd be super confused because, yeah, you look at those guys, those are 3 of our best bats in the lineup, and you're taking them out for, guys that aren't as notable, not as big of names. And yeah, I could see where people can be concerned and have some doubt, but you just got to trust Rocco. He clearly knows what he's doing, and it's fun. It's fun to have a coach that is changing with the times and isn't stuck in his old ways.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that if he gets the championship series, at least for sure the World Series, I believe he will be the youngest manager to get into the ALCS or the World Series. I mean, again, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, he's only 35 years old. I know he's up there in youngest managers ever. I think the Cardinals manager right now might be a tad younger than him, which is kind of crazy, but he played with Tampa Bay. And what does Tampa Bay do, Alex? They use the numbers. They use the
love
analytics.
the numbers.
How did they get to the World Series? Why did they pull Blake Snell? You know, there are plus and minuses. It was a numbers reason, right? And had he pulled Blake Snell and it worked out and they went on to make, I'm not talking Rocco, but Kevin Cash, had he pulled Blake Snell in that and it worked out, we'd be praising him. We wouldn't be talking about how Blake Snell was the biggest pull. I think that's ridiculous to give him too much crap for that, because we are going to see that move from Rocco in this series still yet, I believe. I think you get into a game 4. I think Joe Ryan's going to be out there absolutely dealing, and it's going to be the 3rd or 4th inning, and he's going to pull him. And everyone's going to go, why? What are you thinking? But I think it's going to be the flip side. I think he's going to pull him. He's going to bring in Kenta Maeda, maybe even a Bailey Ober, and you're going to go, all right, I get it. It worked. You know, like this lineup, this Astros lineup is the most feared in baseball. I would say maybe the Braves lineup, but in the playoffs, I'm sorry, but the Braves lineup is not as scary as this lineup in the playoffs. I mean, it just feels like from top to bottom, even the guys like Chas McCormick, you're just like, he can hurt you at any second. Martin Maldonado, all these guys, they are gamers in the playoffs. They know what they're doing, and they learned from the best. Carlos Correa. He carried this team. He started this team. He's drafted first overall by this team. He is the reason that the Houston Astros are who they are, in my opinion. He put them on their shoulders. I know Altuve was there, Bregman's there, but really, Carlos Correa, as you can see as Twins fans this year and last year, he's a leader. I mean, you can't tell me that this Houston Astros team would be where it is right now had it not been for Carlos Correa, when he is the number 3 overall RBI leader in the playoffs in history, number 8th overall in home runs in the playoff in MLB history. And he, in the RBIs section too, he has about half the amount of RBIs as Derek Jeter, or half the amount. He has 2 more RBIs than Derek Jeter. Let me start this over. 2 RBIs more than Derek Jeter, right? Half the amount of playoff appearances. Unbelievable.
That's insane.
So crazy. He has less than half. I think he only has 350 plate appearances to 747 or something for Derek Jeter. And even more for Big Papi. And he has more RBIs than Big Papi. And you know, we've been watching playoffs since we were young. David Ortiz is Mr. Playoffs. Nobody's calling Carlos Correa Mr. Playoffs because he got moved from Houston to Minnesota. Had he been there last year and won that MVP that Pena got, we'd be talking even more about Carlos Correa in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I don't think fans truly understand how important it is for this team to have a guy like that on their roster. You're talking about a team with a lot of young guys, a lot of rookies in second years that haven't had this playoff experience. And to have a guy like that in your dugout, giving you tips, giving you advice, and most importantly, leading by example, it's so valuable. And I don't think we would be here without Correa right now.
I agree. And I can't believe that there's a single Houston Astros fan that thinks any differently, because how is it they were booing him? You could hear it in the TV broadcast pretty clear. The Astros fans were booing Carlos Correa. Honestly, I don't get it.
Well, didn't they start the game cheering for him, and then after his RBIs and whatnot, then they started booing him.
Yeah, I get not cheering. Like, you don't want to pump the guy up, but like straight up boos against the guy who built your organization in a way makes no sense. I get it if, like, as a Twins fan, all the Twins fans were cheering for Jose Barrios, but like, had they announced Jose Barrios' name and half the stadium started booing, I wouldn't have been shocked. You know, Barrios, he didn't take us to the promised land. He didn't carry us in the playoffs. He was a great pitcher with us. We loved him. He came up with us. I liked Barrios. I cheered for Barrios when they announced his name, but had people booed him in Minnesota, wouldn't have been surprised. Makes kind of sense. All right, fine. But Carlos Correa in Houston, like, he didn't want to leave Houston. He wanted to stay. He has to get his bag. He's got to get the money he's owed. They didn't want to pay him. You should be booing the Houston Astros organization is what the fans should be doing, because they're about to hopefully lose to the Twins in a 5-game series with Correa moving on. And Correa getting Jeremy Pena out on that diving play to end the game, throwing over across his shoulder, over across his body to Killaroff, also made a great play at first. That was just the cherry on top. I wish that was game. I wish that was the clinching play of the series, because that would have just been like Correa went to another level of confidence on that play, I think. Yeah. So that makes me even more excited. And yeah, I just can't say enough good things about Carlos Correa as a leader on this team. You got to have one, and we've got it.
You do. You really do need one.
I mean, he had a double. He was 3 for 4 with 3 RBIs and a walk. You can't ask for much more. And Kyle Farmer stepping in. I don't think he even had an at bat yet in the playoffs, right? I know he didn't start, but I believe this was his first at bats in the playoffs. First at bat in the playoffs was in the second, and he goes yard. I mean, Kyle Farmer can rake, man. And he was kind of, when he left Cincinnati, he was kind of like Luis Ariz. He was a fan favorite over there. So I know there's a lot of Cincinnati fans that are cheering for that Kyle Farmer home run, and good for him. And that just felt like when we went up 3-0, felt like that was right where we needed to be. I felt very confident being up 3-0, even though it was only the second inning.
But you have Pablo on the mound. And, exactly. He's just, what you're getting from him every game. He's shut down. So when you give him a 3-run lead, you put your team in a terrific position to win a baseball game.
Yep. And again, we talked about Rocco. You get into that 7th inning, you're up 5-0, and Pablo's getting close to maybe getting pulled out of this game. He's already thrown about 80 pitches, and you're going, I don't know. Like, I've seen Rocco all year. He doesn't let guys throw over 100 pitches very often. But he has that mindset that I think maybe Kevin Cash just was missing a little bit with Tampa Bay, as he realized the moment he realized who Pablo was, how much you can trust that Pablo is going to tell you if he's hurting, if he can't throw anymore. He's not going to let that, take over his life. He cares about his body. He eats well. Like, he's a guy you can trust, right? And Rocco trusted him. Rocco sent him back out there. He let him throw. How many pitches did he end up throwing? I'm trying to remember. I think he threw 105 pitches. And I know that's not a lot in the big scheme of the MLB and the history, but for the Minnesota Twins and Rocco Baldelli to let a pitcher throw 105 pitches in a pretty close playoff game, it was 5-0 at that time. That's incredible. I thought for sure they were going to take him out after the 5th inning, and that's where I was starting to get nervous, just because I was like, please don't take him out. This is not the time. There's no way the analytics say to take out a guy who's this hot and throwing this much heat right now that they can't touch. They just couldn't touch him. He was pretty much unhittable, it felt like.
And I think that's a big distinguisher between analytical coaches nowadays, where you got some that are so bought into the analytics that they get pulled away from the game sometimes. And at the end of the day, there's a feel thing to it. You got to know how guys are working. And I think Rocco does a good job of that, of understanding when he should and shouldn't listen to the analytics, and just, use his eyes and see a guy that's just absolutely cooking on the mound, and you just got to let him keep working, and he made the right choice.
Yeah. And sometimes you got to set your emotions aside as a manager. And that's been the difference, I think, from the early 60s, 70s, even the last time we were in the World Series in 87. I think that's the difference between that team and this team, is Rocco is able to set his emotions aside and go, this guy is best in this situation right here. I mean, Kyle Farmer was coming up to the plate, and he's already got a 2-run bomb. He's already feeling good. He's playing a great game over at third. And you know what he does? Puts in Edward Julian. Why? It made most sense for the matchup. It was the right call, because Edward Julian ends up getting a hit. We go up, and now we're up 6-0. And you go, that was the cap we needed. You didn't just leave Kyle Farmer out there just because he got a home run. He earned it. He deserves to be out there. No, this is a team game. And you know who probably understood and was like, yes, I agree. The first person, Kyle Farmer. And that's what I love. This is just, and again, Julian goes up there. You think, all right, well, now you're going to probably keep Julian in the game. No, because that doesn't make the most sense, because now you're up 6-0. You're not looking for more offense. Julian, he is your offense, right? And you don't necessarily need him at defense. You can bring Stevenson in, throw Stevenson into left field, who is so fast. Nothing's going to fall by that guy. He's an amazing center fielder, but putting him in left field, he's going to be just as great. And you can move Willie Castro into third base. This team is just built for playoffs. It's built to be able to move people around. You're never really put in a corner. The only thing that could separate this team from all the other teams, I think the only thing holding us back right now is the fact that Royce Lewis can't be playing third. And because if you could have Royce Lewis out there at third base, that opens so many doors for who you want to put into DH. I think Edward Julian becomes your DH. You move Polanco over to second, Lewis at third. It's just, and that's going to happen. You keep winning, he will be playing third if we continue to move on from this series.
Well, and that's something we've been talking about all year with this team. It's depth, and this team has loads of it. There's so many options with what we can do with our lineup every single game that it just gives an analytical coach, like we've been saying all episode, like Rocco, so much flexibility and firepower that he can really do whatever he needs to win the game. He has options to do it, and in the playoffs, that's just extremely valuable.
Yep. And we've seen teams for the Twins have those options before with offense, but never with the bullpen. This is one of the first years that you're like, you could go to anyone in that bullpen and I feel good, especially after what Griffin Jacks did in the wild card round. Put the season aside. Griffin Jacks is a new Griffin Jacks right now. And he's shown Rocco trusts him. That confidence level is still there no matter how many losses he had on the season. You can bring in any of those guys. And now in 2 games against the Astros, you've barely had to use many of your relievers. So you're headed into home games right now with all your relievers pretty much being unseen by Houston. I mean, that's huge. It's too bad we had to bring Duran out. I was really hoping we'd stay up 6-0, be able to maybe bring, Pagan or let Brock Stewart finish out the game even. But once you get to that 6-2 against this lineup, you got to shut him down. You had to bring Duran out. You got to throw that fire. But if there's anyone that it's okay for them to see, I think it's Duran, because you can know that Duran is throwing you a 105-mile-an-hour pitch or a 90-mile-an-hour curveball. He could straight up tell you before he throws that, and you still are going to have a hard time hitting it. Where, some of these other guys in our lineup, like I would way rather they get to see Duran multiple times than anyone else in this bullpen, because 100%. Everybody's got filthy stuff. I'm just so excited. You got some predictions on today's game?
All right, time for our favorite new segment, I should say. Not gambling advice. We're terrible gamblers, so don't listen to us. But my pick.
I don't think you call it gambling what we do. I think you call it like I want to click a button and then cheer for the button players. I clicked.
Yeah, there you go. But if you're using Underdog, there is a boosted payout for Jorge Polanco over 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs. I think he crushes this number. You got a veteran guy. He's a leader on this team. And I think gets a little juice from the crowd and hits a nice little double or something, gets the game moving along. So that's my pick to click, my pick of the week or pick of the game. Cole, what do you got?
Well, I didn't take a look at all of our splits, but I think my pick of the game, you have to stick with Mr. Carlos Correa. I think he, in this game, at least at home, I think he's going to break the RBI record. I think he only needs like 5 more, I believe. Dude, there's no one that I would rather put this team on the back of than Carlos Correa right now. He's never looked better all season. He struggled. He's working on things. I kind of feel like he looked at the season as spring training, the way that he played his season. And this is his real season. You give me whatever it is. Give me over 0.5 home runs in the next 2 games, and I would take that. He's going to hit a bomb. He's due. He needs a bomb. He needs a break out of being, he's going to move up to 7th on that list eventually here.
Well, and I want to go back to what you were saying about him treating the season like spring training. I think that's a really interesting thought, because you look at this team and their division. From the start of the year, it was pretty clear that we were going to have a very easy, walk to winning this division. I think we were a little worried about Cleveland at the start. They tapered off towards the end, but I think there is definitely some truth to that maybe he was really just experimenting with things, trying to really dial in, and come playoff time, he flips that switch, becomes Carlos Correa, and is just raking. So who knows? Maybe there is a little truth in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the way that the Twins kind of looked at the season all year. I've said it on here this season, even like, you treat minor league games. If you go to a minor league game and you see a pitcher kind of get into a jam, a lot of times, if that pitcher obviously being a prospect, if it's AAA or something, they're going to leave him out there. Even if the matchup doesn't totally make sense, they're going to force him to find a way to work through that jam and get out of it. And that's what Rocco did all year. I think that's why he continued even last year and this year to roll out Pagan in situations that he's been struggling in, rolling out Griffin Jacks, even though he's got 8, 9, 10 losses on the season. He just kept putting them out there and said, figure it out. You'll get it. Get this one. Do it again. And, he more often than not, they did do it. Yes, they blew some games. Yes, Duran had some issues later in the season, but you know what? Doesn't change anything. Kept rolling them out there. Said, this is our lineup. You guys are the guys we trust. This is what's happening. The other guy that I want to just talk about quick that I think is going to be my pick to click in this game is Ryan Jeffers. I don't think we're going to see Christian Vasquez out there. It doesn't make sense. Jeffers, ERA with the pitchers. I was talking about Jeffers as just being an offensive kind of guy, right? He's a better hitter than Christian Vasquez. He's younger. He's got more pop. He can break a game open pretty easily. But defensively, wow. What a playoff series for Jeffers. I mean, making plays to Correa at second, just perfectly calling a game with Pablo. There was only one pitch, if you remember watching the game, that Pablo shook off, and he shook him off twice on Jeffers, and I can't remember who the batter was, but either way, it ended up becoming a base hit, broken bat single. Only pitch that he shook off the entire game. Other than that, Ryan Jeffers needs to get a lot of credit for that last win. He was 0 for 3 in the game, but I think you're coming home. He got interviewed on Fox. He's got some, pedigree now. People know who his name is a little bit more after how well of a game he called with Pablo, and that where he threw out Jose Abreu at second. People know who he is. He's going to stand out in this game, and I think Matt Wallner as well. If I have to say, those are my 3 picks to click: is Carlos Correa, Ryan Jeffers, and Matt Wallner is about to become the next Joe Mauer in Minnesota. He's going to become the hometown hero. It's going to happen in game 3 or 4, but that's my picks. I'm feeling good, Alex.
Well,
and I hope we record our next podcast feeling good.
That's the goal. I do want to go back to what you were saying about Jeffers. I don't think fans understand. A pitcher only shaking a catcher off once is amazing. Like, that is, to have both of those guys on that same of a page. It's either two things. They're on the same page and thinking the exact same thing all game long, or Lopez trusts him so much that he's buying in and believing, and he knows that Jeffers is going to do his job back there. And that's such a big thing for a pitcher, to have a catcher he can trust. I mean, you look back at a guy like a Jeff Mathis, like, shout out Foolish Baseball, one of my favorite YouTube baseball YouTubers. He did a great video really demonstrating how big of an advantage having a great catcher who's great at framing, knows when to call the right pitches. And I think Jeffers really helped out Lopez a ton. And I think that's just something that a lot of fans should be aware of for sure.
Yeah. And if you take a look at the team overall, I saw a stat that said, again, I don't know the exact number, I don't have in front of me, but his ERA for the whole pitching staff as a whole is 1 full point less than when Christian Vasquez is out there. So even these pitchers trust Ryan Jeffers. He's only 24 years old. He's going to be around. I mean, this whole team's going to be around a little while. We're going to replace some people eventually in the next few years, but we got a core that needs to learn what it feels like to win a divisional series, and this is our moment. This is our chance. This is what Twins fans needed. You got just the Minnesota Vikings over here. Just
let's move on. We don't need to talk about them. It's Twin season.
No, right now the Twins are the patch. They're the Band-Aid over all the Vikings fans, while the Vikings are just bleeding over here to the Kansas City Chiefs and to every other team except for the Carolina Panthers. Is the only team they can beat. We needed this. Minnesota sports fans needed this. The Wild fell apart against the Stars in the playoffs. The Wolves fell to the Denver Nuggets. I mean, this is what we needed.
Wolves
need to continue this.
Wolves could have been the second best team in the NBA. We'll never know. I mean, they lost to the championship.
They
champions with round one.
And they beat them in one game. So, I mean, hey, we still got Minnesota is looking bright. We're never going to have what New York has or Boston has or LA has. We're never going to have that. This is what we have. And this is where we're showing up. Twins fans are going to show up today. It's a 3:00 game. It was a 3:45 game last time. I think you're going to have just as many people here. People are going to be leaving work. I know some people, schools are getting out a little early for this game. That's what teams do when they get to the World Series. That's what cities do, like LA or New York or the Chicago Cubs. That's what they do when they get to the championship series, a game 7. That's what they do when they get to the World Series. Not a game 3 in the ALDS where, I know a law school. One of my friends, she's going to school to be a lawyer, and they're letting them skip class today to go to the Twins game if they go to the game. Like, they're promoting going to the game. I mean, this is just
it's just stuff. It speaks volumes. It's a city that's been just struggling for seasons and seasons, and just bad thing after bad thing. And we just want one championship. It's been 30 years since any of our major sports teams have won a championship, the Twins being the last.
Yep.
And you just got a city that's been waiting for so long, and they're so bought in that, and they see it. They see the possibility with this team. I think that's another big thing with this. So,
and it's not all talk too. They have the team. They can do it.
100%.
And shout out Minnesota Lynx. We can't talk about all these failures in Minnesota without talking about Minnesota Lynx are amazing. We all know it. I love the Minnesota Lynx, but again, we're talking the big major 4 teams. We need this. And I think they even just need to get to a championship, like winning one, obviously. But if we could just get there and get that feeling of like, wow, the Twins are in the World Series. We haven't been in a Super Bowl and a Stanley Cup, and we haven't been there since the Twins.
Just give us a shot.
I know. That's all we need. And like, look at the Diamondbacks. They're up 2-0 over the Dodgers. The Phillies should be up 2-0 over the Braves after they blew it yesterday. And Michael A. Harris made one of the best plays in center field that I've ever seen. That was amazing. Getting a double play on Bryce Harper, catching it up against the wall. Absolutely epic. But that just shows that anything can happen. Look at Texas. Texas is up 2-0 over Baltimore, who won 103 games this season. And Texas just beat Tampa Bay, who had 100 wins almost on the season. I think they had 99 or 100. And Texas had 84, 86. Didn't even win the division. Fell down to the 5th seed. And here they are. Like, they lost Max Scherzer. They lost DeGrom. The Twins haven't had any massive losses besides Buxton right now on the season. And I mean, you can argue he's not a massive loss, but they're here. They can beat any of these teams. They can beat the Dodgers. They can beat the Braves. They could beat the Astros. Obviously, they just showed it. They can beat them all. This is the year. Like, I've never looked at a playoff lineup and said there's been years where you're like, if you get to the World Series, you can't beat any of these National League teams. You can't beat this American League team. Like, you'd have to get really lucky to get by them. We don't need luck. We just got to continue to use our skill. We need not bad luck. That's what we need. We just need not to have bases loaded in the 8th inning down by 1 and ground into a double play. We got to avoid that. That is the biggest issue with this team, is leaving runners on. I think they've left more runners on so far in the playoffs than any team in the playoffs, I believe. Like, they've left a lot of runners on base, and it has not been great. And we know the struggles that Correa had during the season with grounding into double plays. I think he grounded into more double plays than any other player in the majors this year. The offensive side and the bad luck or the clutchness is what we need. But to leave that many runners on and to still win 3 of 4 games to start the playoffs, this team is going to get hot, man. If they just start becoming clutch a little bit, which I think after this win, they're feeling pretty good. They're patting themselves on the back. They just beat the champs from last year.
Job's not finished.
I feel like we keep becoming speechless in this podcast because I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Let's get it. Twins fans, we need you to show up today. We need you to show up for a 1:00 game on Wednesday, which that game could potentially become 6:00 if Texas wins tonight. So I don't know. I want a 6:00 game, but an ideal situation for the Twins is that Texas loses tonight, because that causes them to have to use another pitcher tomorrow and then hopefully go to a game 5 and use another pitcher. So that way, if we win this series and we face Texas or Baltimore, they've already used up a bunch of their pitchers. But if Texas wins tonight, they sweep Baltimore. They're sitting there waiting for our series to get done to see who they face. And that means we get their primetime game at 6:00, which I don't know what I want more. I think I want the 6:00 game. I think we can figure it out with their pitching. They got Nathan Eovaldi. He's the only one that worries me, and he's pitching tonight against Baltimore. So if you want to go to the game at 6:00, go Mitch Garver, go Texas, right? Go Nathan Eovaldi right now. That's probably what's going to happen. So 1:00 or 6:00 Wednesday. Anyway, Twins fans, let's see you show up. Let's get those homer hankies out. I'll be screaming at the top of my lungs. If we do this podcast in the morning or tomorrow at some point, I'm probably not going to have much of a voice, but it's going to be worth it. Let's go. That's all I can say. You got any last words on the Twins?
Go Twins, go.
Go Twins, go. That's it.
You just got to
keep. We're going to be yelling.
Keep the train moving.
Keep the train moving. Please subscribe to Hot Dish Sports. We're going to be continuing to cover the Twins. We talked about a lot of stuff on this podcast. We just need the fans to show up. You're another part of this team. We're another part of this team. This city needs this. Let's go, Twins. Here we go.
Let's go.